Good afternoon. We'll commence the September 28th Municipality of West Elgin Council meeting at 4 p.m. We're at the West Elgin Community Complex. Number one is to call the meeting to order. No, okay. And then the adoption of the agenda. The recommendation is that the Municipality of West Elgin Council hereby adopts the agenda as presented. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Navakis, seconded by Councillor Denning. All those in favor? And that is passed. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Anybody have anything to disclose at this time or otherwise within the meeting? Seeing none, we'll go on to our statutory public meeting. Clerk?
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin proceed into a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act.
We're looking for Robert, correct? Oh, I need to move for seconder for that. Sorry. Councillor Denning and Councillor Navakis will second it. All in favor? That is passed. He's upside down.
Robert, we can see you, but you are upside down.
Okay. You can see me upside down. I'm trying to figure out how to undo that. I don't know what it is there.
Comment says you were muted.
Robert, did you want to try logging out and maybe logging back into the meeting to see if that fixes it?
I'm gonna try my I'm just going into my account here to try to see if I've messed with a setting here. Yep, I'm gonna try logging out and log back in again. We'll see if that does it.
Welcome, Mr. Brown, as you've corrected yourself to not be the matrix anymore, as someone in our chambers has stated. So go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My apologies. All the blood is rushing back to my head now, so we'll start this off. This application is located on Finney Street. This has been before council before the August 10th meeting. Just a quick refresher on that. The property is located on the east side of Finney Street, just north of Gilbert. It's a vacant property that's designated residential in the official plan and zoned future residential under the West Elgin zoning bylaw. The property is roughly 2.2 acres in area with frontage along Finney Street. A draft plan of subdivision application was submitted along with a zoning amendment to develop 10 lots for single detached dwellings on a cul-de-sac style street. Zoning is to rezone the property from the future residential to an appropriate residential classification to allow development to go forward. At the meeting on the 10th, several property owners from the surrounding area attended the meeting and expressed a number of concerns with the proposed development, and council deferred a decision on the application until staff could consult with both the applicant an attempt to address the issues that were raised by the neighbors. What occurred since then was a site meeting on September 19th. Lee Gosnell, Tom Mohan, myself, the municipal consulting engineer, attended the site along with the consultant and the applicant, with the hopes of addressing the concerns, which I'll go through briefly. It was about 10 to 12 people that attended the meeting. I believe it was a fairly productive meeting. There was a number of questions that were raised, some of which were raised at council. It included, with the development, obviously there will be some increased traffic with the addition of 10 new houses in the area. It was noted at the August 10th meeting that there has been a lack of dedicated truck route in that area to service the industrial lands that are on the other side of Finney Street, have been for quite some time. There has been some ongoing discussions about a resolution for that. At this point, I will simply say to council that a solution is being reviewed, and actually some discussions did start last week. So there is some progress, hopefully, that will be made on that, and that'll come back to council at a later date. There was some concern that originally, when this subdivision was proposed quite some time ago, there were fewer lots. I believe it was somewhere between about six to 8 lots were originally proposed. The applicant is looking at a total of 10 lots in this particular instance, as I mentioned. There was concern expressed about the provincially significant wetland that is located to the west, and also ownership of a small piece of land that's in the northeast corner of the property. In terms of that issue, I did speak with the applicant's legal counsel on that. And they were aware that they don't own the property. The property's been through absolute title, so they have what's needed for the abutting landowners to undertake if they wish to acquire ownership of that. The land that was made very clear by the applicant's lawyer. So it would be a matter of the abutting landowners basically going through a similar process to potentially request that land be conveyed to them, because it's not it hasn't been actively cared for by the current owner. The landlord is not around, and they've tried going through the process to contact them with no success. The biggest concern, obviously, for this subdivision is centered around stormwater. This obviously has been reinforced by recent significant rain events, and not just one, but two in fairly rapid succession. So much of the discussion centered around what the impact would potentially be and what's being done for the subdivision itself in order to be able to ensure that the applicant is retaining water and it's not impacting on the property. I brought up here on the screen, this is an overview of the subdivision itself. This is the servicing drawing. What's being proposed for the stormwater management? I'm not going to go into this in great detail because the applicant's engineer is on online, and I'd like him to go through after I've completed sort of my brief presentation, have them kind of give council a little more detail on this. But effectively, what has to be done is water has to be collected around the outside, directed into catch basins and into an existing storm sewer that was installed a number of years ago. That comes from the former Batter Bus property across Finney, up what would be the new cul-de-sac. And then it goes back towards the rear of the property, cuts over to the right, and then out and up to the Graham Street drain. So that's the outlet. I'll let the applicant's engineer describe sort of what the details of that are, but in a nutshell, we let people know at the meeting that the stormwater management has to be managed on site. They can't shed water off onto the neighbors. They can't shed water off this property quicker than what it is now. It has to be controlled, and they'll go into the details of how that's being controlled. The one thing that I wanted to kind of clarify, because I'd heard sort of, I guess, rumors rumbling about this when council first deferred a decision on this. There was mention of the West Lorne stormwater study, being undertaken with a potential completion in November. And I think the thought may have been that we wouldn't be bringing this back until such time as that work was completed. Unfortunately, and this has to do in part with some recent changes in the Planning Act, there are limitations on timelines once an application is received by any municipality and deemed complete. And both the zoning and the plan of subdivision that were submitted were deemed complete. We are at the time frame under which this has to come forward to council, and a decision has to be made on it. If that doesn't occur within that time frame, there's a couple of different things that can happen. And I certainly want to express that this is simply for council's information. I don't bring this up as a matter of certainly, pushing council in a particular direction. I just want them to have the information they need in front of them. Basically, the two potential outcomes of this are, if we continue to defer the application, the applicant could potentially appeal this to the Ontario Land Tribunal for a failure to make a decision on it. And also more recently, the Planning Act was changed so that if you don't meet the timelines, there's what I guess I'd refer to or explain as a graduated potential refund of application fees. If you go beyond the initial time frame by, say, 30 days, you have to refund a certain percentage. You go another 30 days, it's another percentage. If you go as much as 90 days out, you could potentially have to refund the entire application fee. I guess this was an effort to prod decisions to be made a little quicker, and centers obviously around our current housing needs. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm certainly able to answer any more questions or clarify any points, but I wanted to also provide an opportunity for the applicant's engineer to go over and more specifically address the details of the stormwater management, since that was, I believe, the primary concern that many of the surrounding neighbors had.
Thank you for that, Robert. We could go ahead with Mr. Lyle if you'd like to speak.
Hi, thank you, Robert, for that presentation. Through you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So my name is Darren Lyle. I'm a consulting civil engineer, principal partner at Cyril J. DeMeyer Limited, or CJDL. So we are the consulting engineer for Don West on this project. I should acknowledge I did have to send my regrets at the last public meeting. So I was unfortunately not able to address some of the concerns that were brought up a month ago or more, kind of live and in person. But kind of have attempted to address those concerns at the September 19th site meeting, as Robert mentioned, and then furthermore, I'm available for any questions or discussion today. So Robert has done a great job. Thank you, Robert, that introduced the kind of the stormwater management concept here. And I guess I'll just elaborate on a few details on site. So similar, within kind of limitations, but most new developments are treated the same. And in principle, as Robert mentioned, stormwater flows from the site in pre and post development conditions. We're not allowed to increase the runoff from the site when development proceeds. So in this particular instance, the Finney Street Municipal Drain was constructed in and around 2003, and at the time was designed and sized to service a 8-lot single-family detached residential subdivision. And for whatever reason, the drain was built, but the subdivision did not proceed. And fast forwarding 20 years, Don West has bought the property and is now contemplating development of a similar concept, still a central cul-de-sac within the site, but with 10 lots instead of 8. Furthermore, over the passage of that 20 years, as we're kind of all well aware, storms have become more intense, and we're seeing more sizable rainfalls come more quickly and more frequently. So the municipality has accordingly updated their design standards from requiring storm sewers to convey a 2-year storm, whereas now the current standard in West Elgin is to convey a 5-year storm. So one of the tasks that we've had to do with our stormwater management design is ensure that we are restricting Don West proposed 10-lot subdivision at the 5-year storm down to the previous design requirements of the 8-lot subdivision and the 2-year storm. So in a sense, that way we're actually over restricting from what you would in a sense if it was kind of a brand new subdivision without an existing drain to tie into. Furthermore, the swim report does go into details up to the 100-year storm event site prior to discharge to the drain, which is basically a standard practice across the province and on all jobs that we work on. So I guess it's kind of the stormwater management concept in a nutshell. I would like to kind of acknowledge that really is unchanged from what was submitted with the development applications when they were filed back in May. But perhaps this further explanation kind of helps to clarify things a little bit. At the previous public meeting, there were also comments and concerns raised about groundwater and surface water as well. So I would like to touch on both of those. Groundwater perhaps a little more quickly. A geotechnical investigation was completed by EXP, a geotechnical firm by the applicant, submitted with the development applications. There were three test holes advanced on site, and they were dug to below the footing elevation of the proposed homes, and there was no groundwater concerns found in either of, or all three, excuse me, of those holes that were advanced. I guess some of the homes within the neighborhood are a little bit older and perhaps aren't built with, I guess, what you would call today's modern construction technologies. So maybe some of the basement flooding and infiltration into the basement parts of some of the existing homes may have to just do with direct gravity connections to existing drains, or the absence of footing drains around the perimeter footing of the basement or things like that. which would neither be improved or have a negatively impacted by the proposed subdivision. So kind of the third component that I wanted to touch on is the surface drainage, and I feel in a lot of ways from the feedback that we got at the site meeting that this was probably the most important part for many of the neighboring residents that abut this property. So upon development, upon development of the site, there was a proposed grading plan submitted to the municipality. Upon development, we are proposing a perimeter swale around the entirety of the site that will collect water from the 10 proposed lots, and it will convey it directly to the Finney Street drain that I mentioned. To ensure that that's done properly and with municipal standards, there's 2 new pipes to be extended from the existing Finney Street municipal drain, and there's 4 new catch basins total, 2 on each branch, to be installed that will collect flows and convey it to the drain. So there is certainly the site right now is kind of crested in the middle with flows shedding to the northwest and southeast, and that grading concept will remain in post-development conditions, but flows will be intercepted by this new infrastructure prior to discharge onto the neighboring lots. So there is definitely a few areas of standing water that are present on site, I guess today, before any construction works are commenced, but all those will be cleaned up upon development. So I guess that's what I see kind of in a nutshell is what were the few kind of key recurring topics from what we heard, but happy to stay on the line here and answer any questions or provide any clarification from council or member of the public. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lyle. Any questions from council? Clarifications needed? Councillor Denning?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through the chair. In a situation like this with McLeod Court, snow plowing, whose responsibility is that?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, that will be the municipality. The road will be constructed by the developer. It'll be put on maintenance for a period of a year. And then once that's completed, the municipality, the road's conveyed to the municipality, and then it'll become our responsibility for ongoing maintenance.
Thank you.
Councillor Novakis, you have the floor.
Through the chair, Robert, just for clarification, because you've mentioned the new Planning Act. Am I correct in saying that if this applicant has met all of the requirements of the Planning Act, that if we as council choose not to move forward with this application, they would then go to the Housing Tribunal? And ultimately, it would be up to the Housing Tribunal to decide whether they've met the standards. And what ramifications, if they are allowed to go forward at that kind of second level of government, would the municipality face?
That's a good question. Through you, Deputy Mayor. That if council chooses not to move forward on the application, the applicant has the option to wait or to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal for non-decision. What that entails effectively is there's a number of different directions that can go. Worst case is it goes to a full hearing, and the tribunal makes a decision and determines, yes, the application was complete, and they would ask the tribunal to make a decision for
So
council.
And then in your opinion, then this applicant has reached all of the expectations set forth?
Yes, there have been, for 10 lots, the number of studies and background work that has gone into this, it's almost, I would say, beyond having been completed, and due diligence met on this based on the scale of the development, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the public? Go ahead. I'll pick the gentleman, and then if you just state your name when you come to the microphone, that would be great.
Okay, this,
We'll give you a seat, don't worry.
that's
We'll make you
okay.
stand up.
That's okay. I'm not that tall. Okay, Darren, Dennis Joyce, 263 Finney Street. Lots 9 and 10 are to the south side of my property. What I seen with the whole drainage around there, I am quite confident that it's going to do what you say it's going to do. I've spoke with many of my neighbors concerning that were concerned with this, and told them that I am quite happy with what I see or what I seen on all the plans at the site meeting. So as far as I'm concerned, you have done what you said you were going to do.
Thank you, Dennis, for that. Appreciate you coming out and for your words. Go ahead and just state your name when you get to the microphone, please.
Hi, Rachel Colick. I don't think any of us argued at any point that the company was doing their due diligence. I think the general concern, and I'm actually surprised there aren't more residents here because I know there are many more people who are still concerned that I've spoken to, but I'm not sure that everybody knew that this was coming up today, because at the last time we discussed this, we all agreed it would come up again in November. So there may be a little confusion on that, but I don't think we questioned whether they had done all the things that they were doing. I think the question is it based on information that is present to the current state of affairs of the people who already live there and the houses that are already there? So I hear them in that they're, meeting all of the latest, greatest standards for building a new development, but that drain that they are pushing all of that water into, or have the plan for all of that to push into, can't move the water that exists there today already and is flooding the homes and the properties of the people who are there today already. That is the concern. So it's not that they don't have a plan for moving the water and catching the water. That's not actually the problem in this town. The problem is the drains aren't actually big enough to move that water away from that spot. So you can push the water to the drain all you want, but I can tell you from experience, it won't matter because the drain can only move so much at a time in the first place. And that's the problem everywhere in town, as far as I understand it, after speaking with these folks for hours on end, is that, you can fix one area, or you can tell me that the new houses are being built to the newest standards, but the system they're built on, the foundation they're built on, is already not enough to serve the town as it stands, which is why we're spending so much money on doing the survey and getting the engineers to tell us what the system should look like to support the existing town. That won't even take into consideration all of the new builds that will likely to come into play in the next 3 to 5 years, or over however many years it will take them to build that new system, of which all of these homes have to live on. So I don't think it was our concern that they somehow were skirting the rules. That was not at all what anybody was saying. What we were saying was, for the people who already live here, we're just really trying to tell you that it won't matter how much you are diverting the water. The drain already cannot handle the hardscapes that it currently exists around. And with all due respect to that fact, I live here on Main Street, 4 doors down from one of the newest homes that this applicant has built in this area, to all these new fancy standards. They're up on this nice little hill and all of that. But you should really talk to them, because after those 2 storms this summer, they have water in their basement. So it doesn't work. It doesn't work to build the new home to the new standards on top of a system that is 100 years old or whatever. And even this one, you've already said the drain you're relying on was built for 8 homes, not 10. So that's my concern in wherever these new developments pop up. I get that we need the housing. I get that the municipality needs the taxes. I'm not arguing any of that, guys. I'm arguing that you've just set aside a whole chunk of money because we all agree that this system is failing across the board because it's not up to par for the houses that are already here. And you keep wanting to put in more new houses on top of it before you fix that foundation. And to me, that's just adding more problems for the people who live here, and then the brand new residents you're gonna have like me, who show up and didn't know all this was happening, even though all their neighbors did. And the very first summer, they're dealing with damage to their homes, brand new homes. It won't guarantee them no damage. Again, talk to the people who are 4 doors down from me. They'll tell you how upset they are that their fancy new standards didn't help them when everyone around them is flooding, right? Like that, it doesn't make logical sense. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Counselor Navakis?
Through the chair, I would just like to say that the statement that we all agree that the system is failing is incorrect. And I would like to point out the fact that in the Spreet report, when they are going to investigate, one of their statements from the engineer who put the system in was they weren't sure if they were going to find solutions. So I think before we blanket statement, we should let Spreet come back and tell us what they as engineers see as the issue.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Denning?
Thank you, Rachel, and through the chair. So perhaps one of the reasons why we don't have the same amount of people here this time as we did last time is last week, Don West did come out. They did a site public meeting. A lot of the neighbors were there. A lot of questions and answers took place. And one of the things that I recall from that meeting was that their system is intended to hold the water on the property long enough so that it is not adding additional volume of water during the significant surge moments, more so than it would right now as a grass field. That was the piece of the explanation that was provided to me that made me feel more comfortable about it. And I think I won't speak for the community or the neighbors, but the ones that I did speak with, there was a lot of them that felt that it was a good explanation. And although no guarantees were put in place, that it was clear that the system that they were proposing was something that was not going to add additional stress at those stress times. And if I have misspoken, anybody who's on the Zoom from Don West, please correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth.
Mr. Lyle, you're still on the line with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Councillor Denning. And yes, what you said is accurate. The whole principle of what we're doing is controlling the I guess what we would call peak flows. So at the height of the storm, so that the runoff will not be increased during development, which is kind of the critical point of capacity in the system. Paving hardscape, putting foundations in does increase the overall runoff from the site, and there really is just no way around that. But the kind of the key principle of the civil engineering component of that is to reduce the peak flow rate, store the water on site in these infiltration chambers that we have designed, so that the peak flow, the height of the flow is not increased, so will not further exacerbate the downstream sewer system or flooding concerns. So yes, what you said is accurate, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, the recommendation?
That West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Robert Brown, planner, regarding zoning bylaw amendment application D 14-12-2023 and draft plan of subdivision 34T-WE 2302 for lands on Finney Street. Recommendation report, supplementary planning report 2023-40.
Mover and seconder for that, please. Counselor Denning? Counselor Statham, all in favor? That is approved. Go ahead, the adjournment of the public meeting.
That the municipality of West Elgin Council hereby adjourn the statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act at the hour of 4:35 p.m.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Navakis? Counselor Statham, all in favor? And that is so moved. We're gonna go with number 6, the adoption of the minutes.
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council on September 14th, 2023, and the emergency council meeting on September 22nd, 2023, be adopted as circulated and printed.
Moving to seconder for those, please. Council Novakis, seconded by Councillor Denning, all in favor? And then so approved. Port Glasgow Yacht Club minutes.
That council of the municipality of West Elgin hereby acknowledge and receive the minutes of the Port Glasgow Yacht Club, August 8th, 2023.
Any business for mover and seconder, moving ahead there. Council Novakis. Councillor Denning. All those in favor? That's so moved. And then business arising from those minutes. Seeing none, we'll go on to the consent agenda. I'm not sure if it's okay if I want to support something. Okay. Okay, Councillor Novakis is maybe the same thing. And myself was 8.1.1 as well as 8.1.2. Councillor Jenny or Councillor Stay the Mini? Nope. Okay, so we carry on with that. Clerk?
That council of the municipality of West Elgin hereby receive the consent agenda for September 28th, 2023.
Mover to seconder, please. Councillor Novakis. Councillor Denning, all in favor? That's so moved. We'll go on to number 9, I believe, which is staff reports.
So the first report that I have up, so just a background of it, in February 2022, the Housing Affordability Task Force delivered its final report, providing 74 recommendations to help Ontario tackle the housing supply crisis and build at least 1.5 million homes by 2031. And 23 of those recommendations have already been completed. So these were forwarded to the office on September 15th, and then the 74 recommendations on September 22nd. So what this is asking is that we provide a response with the 5 top recommendations that are most suitable for West Elgin. And just to be noted, since I have published the agenda, I did receive a call from a representative from the West Elgin Community Health Center who would like to be part of this. He has asked that if we do discuss it, that we'd go with the recommendation to bring it back at the next regular council meeting on October 12th. And he would like to come to be part of it as a delegation. So this, the recommendations must be submitted by October 16th. So that does allow time for us to bring it back on the 12th of October, discuss the 5 recommendations that we would like to see going forward in West Elgin, and still allows time for it to be submitted.
Thank you, Clerk. Councillor Novakis.
Through the chair, Terry, do we have to do this? And I will just say that I find this entire exercise incredibly frustrating. The government asking us now to have say on a bill when they should have been consulting with us before. A bill that has little or no effect on small or rural municipalities' ability to increase housing. And asking us basically for talking points for the media, as opposed to asking us to broaden some of our opinions on their 74 amazing things they have put forward. To me, it just seems like it is a waste of our time, and it really angers me.
Yeah, and through the chair. So it is acknowledged in the letter that the second last paragraph, it says that some of the recommendations may not be applicable to small, rural, or northern communities. But there is nothing in this letter indicating that it is mandatory that is submitted. It just says that we please return the completed chart no later than October 16th. However, with that being said, if you would like confirmation of that, I can certainly look into that to confirm that it is not mandatory.
As the chair may be inappropriate, but I do find their comment inappropriate, not okay for small rural communities because we are currently left out of many, many thoughts around the table by this government. Councilor Vakis?
Through the chair, and if there was an opportunity in our application to provide more feedback than just the 12, I will just say, for example, that when looking through this, I would say 37 was something that could have been helpful for us, but there are also things that allowing granny flats and new up to three apartments in a house is wonderful. But what this bill and this government hasn't acknowledged is that during this current economic situation, many people cannot afford to build an apartment in their home. But those that can build an apartment in their home are those who are investors, who see housing not as a right, but as an investment, who, in my opinion, are creating some of the crises we face. They have another recommendation where they say they wanted to encourage more people to seek trades. If you look at economists, and I would recommend Mike Moffat, part of the reason why we are in this housing crisis is that this current government has allowed so many international students in. And our colleges now, because they've been defunded, are so reliant on these students that we have flooded our housing market with international students who haven't actually gone into the trades. They've gone into everything but. So now we are competing for houses and we are also competing for jobs. So while I agree it's excellent that they have encouraged people to take trades, it is not helping the current situation. So I don't understand how filling out this form is going to help us or is actually going to help the government put together a housing plan that will actually work for rural Ontario and for Ontario in general.
Any other comments from council? Councilor Denning?
Through the chair, and thank you to Councillor Novakis for those thoughts, and to you, Deputy Mayor. I'm fine with deferring this to October. However, I think that in an effort to maximize the opportunity for this to actually be impactful, perhaps we need to be reaching out to Roma to see what other rural municipalities think of this and what they're doing, and perhaps if there's some commonality throughout all of the other municipalities in Ontario, we can zero in on the 5 benefits that most impact rural Ontario and aggregate all of that together with our association members to provide the most chance at this having any impact at all. And so my thoughts are a reach out to Roma to see what or if any other municipalities are how they're handling this.
Okay, so the consensus I'm hearing is we're deferring this at this time. Okay, so we'll defer that. We'll go to 9.1.2. Okay, sorry, go ahead. I'm ahead of you here.
That's okay. That Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby receives the report from Terry Toastrup, clerk, regarding the Housing Affordability Task Force recommendations, and that the recommendation report be brought back at the next regular meeting of council to further discuss the Housing Affordability Task Force recommendations most suitable for the municipality of West Elgin.
Need a mover or seconder for the recommendation, please? Councilor Novakis? Councilor Tatham? And all in favor? And so moved. So sorry, I jumped ahead there. 9.1.2, update electronic meetings participation and procedural bylaw.
So this report is really to council as a information only. When we discussed at the last regular meeting about having the Zoom meeting strictly for recording purposes only, it was noted in the recommendation that the procedural bylaw would be updated. However, after review of that, the only indication in the procedural bylaw refers to electronic participation for members of council. And if we were to put those limitations into our procedural bylaw in the event in the future, if there could potentially be another pandemic where we cannot meet in person, then that would just postpone having to move back to electronic means. If we leave it status quo, that gives council the opportunity and the flexibility to move the council meetings from Zoom to in-person as needed. So this was just a recommendation that no further changes will be made to the procedural bylaw at this time. They're not required.
Okay, any questions from council at all? Seeing none, go ahead with the recommendation, please, clerk.
Okay. That council of the municipality of West Elgin hereby receives the report from Terry Tostrup clerk, and that council acknowledge that no further changes are required to procedural bylaw 2023-77.
A mover and a seconder on that, please. Counselor Bacchus, Counselor Statham, and all in favor? It is so moved. Number 10, accounts. We'll go with the, any questions on the accounts there? They were provided ahead of time. Recommendation then, clerk?
That the mayor and treasurer are hereby authorized to sign payment voucher number 9A amounting in $764,490.90 in settlement of general, road, water, and arena accounts, including EFT number 7188 to 7238, online payments number 1239 to 1249, check number 26288 to 26302, and payroll pay period 19.
Need a mover and seconder, please. Counselor Denning, Counselor Navakis, all in favor? Is so moved. Number 11, council inquiries and announcements. Anybody have anything they want to state? No, seeing nothing at this time. Upcoming meetings, so we've got October 10th, Tri-County Water, 11th, the Arena, 12th, council again, 17th, emergency management exercise, 18th, the rec committee, and the 29th or 26th of October, council. Anyone have anything you want to add, or clerk?
Through the chair, I just wanted to mention that the next meeting on October 12th, there will be a meeting to consider for the Lamont drain. So I did leave a hard copy on everybody's desk. There will be an electronic copy as well, put in the agenda package as well. So that will be first up on the agenda.
All right, thank you for that. Move on to delegations. Is she here now? No? We're too far ahead of time. Okay, so we'll take a little bit of a break and then maybe we can come back and go to some other things within our,
I emailed her.
okay.
I haven't received any.
Well, I myself might go back to council announcements and just put something on the table that I was thinking about. So in the past, when we didn't have a pandemic, I handed out candy at Halloween at our old jail because I thought that was kind of a cool, appropriate place. And I see other municipalities hand out candy on their main street or whatever. I'm wondering if anybody would be okay if I organized something like that to do again in the old jail. I didn't know if that would put stress on staff to open it up for me. And if it's okay, I bring a heater because it's cold in there.
Blanket.
It's chilly, but the children really, really enjoyed seeing the cells. And I think one of the staff put a plastic skeleton in there last time and kids thought it was pretty cool. And I believe they put like a black and white little cap on the skull as if it was a prisoner that had met his demise. So I'm wondering if that's okay if I organize that again, or if that's not something anyone's interested in.
Can I help?
Sure.
I mean,
I'm thinking we're getting a lot of cool hockey players this year. I'm thinking, yeah, some Hockeyville players will come by and grab some candy. Yes. It's embarrassing. Oh. Okay, well, if you put a mask on, your friends won't know. Oh, okay. No, I meant at the jail. So if that's okay, I'll provide the candy. There's nothing other than if staff can open it up for me or give me a key, whatever the case may be, then that would be great. That's all I had for that. Something fun. Sure, go ahead. Go ahead, Councilor Tang.
Well, thank you through the chair. So as everybody knows, we had the culmination of 6 months of incredibly hard work last night with the preseason Craft Hockeyville game, which was a wonderful success. And I suppose I want to go on record on behalf of all of my peers here in council. Thank you to the community for the incredible work that was done to make 2023 probably one of the most exciting years for West Elgin. And just wanted to bring you all up to date that there has been some discussions already throughout the organizing committee about perhaps putting together a volunteer appreciation evening for all of the people that worked so hard and contributed throughout the last 6 months and in the last couple of days as well. So nothing's been planned in concrete as of yet, but just so you know, there is some discussions happening about putting something together possibly in November, possibly at the International Club to thank everybody who participated, and the committee reaching out to some of the different business owners in the municipalities of West Elgin and Dutton Dunwich to see if we can get some sponsorship to fund that dinner.
That sounds amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Just riding on that as well. I don't know, do you have a picture, Terry, of the plaque that was presented last night? Sorry to put you on the spot. No? So a plaque was presented last night due to TV land time constraints. The speech that's prepared by the mayor was not able to be given orally, but a copy was given to the McPhail family. So if it's okay, if you indulge me right now, I have the speech in front of me. Is it okay to read it within chambers? So it's written by our mayor, Richard Leatham. So I'll read it in his words. I've been asked to read a message from West Elgin Mayor Richard Leatham, as unfortunately he has come down with pneumonia and is unable to attend. I would like to thank Craft Hockeyville for the opportunity they have given to the West Elgin and Dunwich communities. It just goes to show you what really can be achieved when small municipalities come together. West Elgin, Dutton Dunwich, Elgin County, the municipalities that are all a part of Elgin County, as well as nursing homes, hospitals, schools, businesses, all joined in together. The countless volunteers and committee members, including Jessica Small, Mary Jo Tate, Rob Tate, Kevin Summers, and Bill Denning. Many thanks to Lee Gosnell, Adam Ecker, and the municipality of West Elgin staff, including the West Elgin Fire Department, the West Elgin Skating Club, the West Lorne Minor Hockey Association, the hockey coaches, parents, never forget the parents, and players, and so many others for helping to make this possible. Living in West Elgin for 30 years, seeing this small community join together to become a mighty force, I am beyond proud of what has been achieved. Speaking of achievements, one of our biggest fans and supporters, Duncan McPhail, unfortunately passed away just before the Hockeyville announcement. I know he would have been very proud of what has developed and brought us into today, as he was an active member of the arena for years. With that being said, we'd like to present a certificate, and it was a plaque, to Duncan's family in respect of him and what he did for our community. And then he was going to ask the McPhail family to come ahead, which they did, and our CAO presented the plaque to the family last night, and is just beautiful. So thanks for organizing that. And the family was truly touched. His widow, Norma McPhail, had held her to her chest through the rest of the game, just cradled it in her seat. So she was very touched. She also had a picture of Duncan pinned with a Hockeyville pin to her chest over her heart yesterday, if you did see her. So very touched, and just everything that Hockeyville has brought to everybody, everything he encompassed is what we saw last night, our community, everything coming together. So it was great. So thank you, Richard, for those great words and passing along to us in your absence. I didn't have a break right now, I guess, until we can have our delegation for 5:30. Thank you. Okay, council's back in session. We have a delegation here. It says in our agenda for 5:30, but we've gotten her a little earlier since we moved through a little quicker. Thank you, Christine Scrimger, for coming, and you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christine Scrimger and am the auditor for the municipality, and I'm presenting you with the draft audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2022. Sorry, I'm just going to shut my emails off. I just heard that happen there. Sorry about that. All right. And so I'll go through them page by page. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me, and hopefully we'll get to the answer on those. I'll have a couple comments at the beginning to make. So because the final agreement with the Tri-County Water Board was signed in early 2022, all the parties then had agreed. So then we have gone back to both 2021 and then this current year, 2022, and taken out the 60% of the Tri-County Water Board that is not owned by this municipality. So what's left is your 40%. And so there is a note to the financial statements related to that. It really doesn't affect your general surplus at all. It just reflects the total water numbers that appear in your financial statements. And again, as you know, the Water Board is a balancing water board, i.e. it doesn't take tax dollars that go over to it. So as I said, it doesn't have any impact on your actual general surplus for the municipality. The second thing I'll make mention of, for those of you who may not have been here before, is that these, when it says consolidated, it's because of that reason, the Tri-County Water Board, and then also because you own the land that the Port Glasgow Yacht Club is on, we consolidate their numbers into these financial statements as well. So just keep that in mind when we're going through this. So my independent auditor's report is what we call in the audit world a clean opinion, meaning we didn't find anything materially incorrect in the financial statements. We've been working with your staff to get these done. I want to thank your CAO treasurer and her staff. I know it's changed a little bit over this last year, so it's been a difficult year for everybody, but we got through it. And the end result of this is also to get what's called an FIR filed with the province of Ontario by September 30th, which obviously is Saturday. We do have until Monday, but we will get that filed on your behalf to the province. So that keeps you in line with them as well. The date it's dated as of today's date, which those charged with governance under the Canadian auditing standards, which is this council. Once you approve them, then they are final. We'll finalize them and as I said, get those other things done to keep you in compliance. All right, we'll move on to the consolidated statement of financial position. This is better known probably as your balance sheet. And I'll remind council what I look at, some of the indicators I look at to see your financial health. First thing is on this statement, about 3/4 of the way down the page, you'll see a line called net financial assets. So at the end of 2021, they were 11 million, just about 11.7 million. And this year they're 12.7 million. So that means you've increased your financial position by about $1 million from last year. And we'll see that flow through when we get to the note on the reserves and reserve funds. They also increased about that amount. So that's good. That's you're saving money. You did have a surplus this year of about 300,000, which has been moved into the tax stabilization reserve. The other thing I look at is, are you replacing your capital assets at least equal to what you're amortizing them? We want to make sure that your capital assets, which be your things like your roads, your water, your wastewater, and buildings and equipment, are all getting replaced so that we're keeping things up to date and in good working order. And in fact, you have done that. If you look at the under the non-financial assets, you see tangible capital assets there have increased, as has work in progress, which are just capital assets that have started during the year and not the project has not yet been completed. The main one this past year was the culvert number 6. And again, this is after what we call amortization. So that's that writing off of the assets over the life of expectancy of those assets. And over this past year, your amortization was 1.7 million. So you not only replace the assets, your assets value has increased, but it's also increased because of that amortization as well. So that's all good news. And then the last thing that I would look at on this financial statement is how much debt have you gone into to do all of this capital asset work. And you can see, in fact, you did not take out any new debt this past year. In fact, you have a very, very low debt level, 139,000. And the majority of that is what I would call user pay debt. So that's municipal drains or sewage users. The majority of that debt is from, so we collect it from the users and then we pay out the debt. So it's not affecting the tax rate. So all those are really great indicators of your financial health at the end of the year. Excuse me. And your accumulated surplus then has increased about $2 million overall, as you see at the bottom of the page there. Any questions on that at all? It's a good news story, so usually I don't get a lot of questions in those cases. All right,
Any
we'll move on.
questions from council? No? Okay, move on. Yep, thank you.
Okay,
Just
sorry.
checking the floor there. No problem.
It's hard when you're away, you can't really read the audience very well. All right, we're moving on to the consolidated statement of operations and accumulated surplus. I'll remind you again of the 3 columns, the budget for 2022 that council passed, and then the actual for 2022, and then compared to the actual 2021. I'll also remind you that If you recall back to 2021, it was still very much affected by COVID. We were still under a lot of restrictions as to what we could and couldn't do, especially in the recreation area. 2022, by about February of 2022, things started to open up and return to whatever somewhat normal can be described as. And so we do see an increase in expenditures overall in 2022, just because we were able to get back to normal and do the activities we had normally done before COVID. So overall, the revenue, we budgeted 11.6, we have 11.2, and that decrease is all related to that tri-county decrease in revenues there, so that there's nothing there that's of concern. Again, because we budget for 100% and then our actuals only 40%, that's why. Under expenditures, so if I looked at this, I'd say we've only budgeted $9.7 million of total expenditures, and yet we spent 10.8, but I will remind council that that includes that 1.7 of amortization that we do not budget for. So there's not an issue in the expenditures of being overspent. In fact, we're underspent, given rise to that surplus that I mentioned before of just about $350,000. So that line about, again, halfway down the page, that says excess of revenue over expenditures, that 429,000, that is your net, basically, how you covered your operating expenses, including amortization, by the amount of revenue you raised, both in taxation and then in these other revenue sources. And again, I'm looking to see that to be a positive number, and it is. And so that's another indicator that I look at. Everything below that line are revenues that relate to the capital assets, so they're not consistent from year to year. They change dependent on what capital projects you're involved in. You'll see the government transfers were budgeted for 1.8 million and only came in at 900,000. That's because the Green Stream project did not. We had hoped to get it started in 2022. It didn't start till actual 2023, so that revenue will show up in 2023. So no other concerns there from my standpoint, coming down to that net surplus at the end of the year of about 2 million more than last year. Any questions on that statement at all?
Not seeing any, Christine.
Okay, keep going then. I'll just briefly go through some of these other statements. The consolidated statement of cash flows shows your increases and decreases on your non-cash items on the balance sheet. And as I said, the majority of these large numbers are all related to capital, which I've gone over those increases and decreases. Coming down to the cash and cash equivalents at the end of the year, just almost exactly what was last year, about $300,000 difference from last year. And that's really just, we had some accounts receivable at the end of the year that we had not received the cash yet for. So no concerns from my standpoint there. The next statement is your statement of change in net assets. And again, this is just a really good snapshot of what's happened with the budget for the capital purchases, and then offset by the amortization, as I mentioned. We then get to the notes to the financial statements, and I won't go through each one of these. They're all standard from last year, and you'll see them in all municipal statements. I do want to mention a couple things, though. If you'd like to turn to note number 7, I think this is a really good reminder of just where we are with debt. As you can imagine, because the grants have dwindled down in many cases. Many municipalities are getting themselves into a lot of debt right now. This simply isn't the case for you guys. Under long-term liabilities, you see your total debt level is only $139,000. And you can see it, as I mentioned, it's all recovered from ratepayers. So that means it doesn't affect your tax rate. So it's coming in from those ratepayers, and then we pay the debt off in the areas of both the sewer system, which is done this current year, and then the municipal drains. The next note is the one probably council is most interested in. This is your breakdown of your accumulated surplus of that 52 million that we kept seeing on those other statements. So you can see of the 52 million, 40 million is invested in capital assets. And then this is where I mentioned about your reserves have gone up about $1 million. So if you look at your those two lines, reserves and reserve funds, you can see the increase is 400,000 in the reserves and about 500,000 in the reserve funds. Number, that's 75,000, just so council knows, that's the surplus of the Port Glasgow Yacht Club, so that's why that number's there. And again, does not affect your general surplus. And the rest of the notes are fairly standard, other than note number 16, which just goes into that whole description of the Tri-County change from prior years, that the numbers changed, and that's why. At the back are two schedules. One is the schedule of the capital asset broken down by type of asset. And as you can imagine, your roads and bridges and environmental systems are over half of your assets. So then that would make sense by what you're spending money on as well. Equipment would then come in, and buildings would be the next ones, which I mentioned when we were going through that. And there's the $1.7 million of capital asset or amortization. The last schedule is a schedule that's required that breaks down all of your revenues and expenses by segment. So these segments are what matches your FIR that I mentioned that we file with the province. They're defined by the ministry, and we have to show this schedule that's sort of a segue between these audited financial statements and the reporting that goes into the province through the FIR. There's also another set of financial statements in the package for the Schleihoff trust fund. There's all that happens in that trust fund is basically some interest gets earned every year on that. And it's, I think it's just over $1,000. Does anyone have any questions, or just even general questions that you might have from a financial nature?
You're good, Counselor Denning. I see you doing numbers there. I think everyone's great. You've explained it so great, and we had it ahead of time to read and had a chance to ask questions and such. Clerk, go ahead with the recommendation.
Thank you.
That the Council of the
Alright.
Municipality of West Elgin hereby approve the consolidated financial statements and the trust fund financial statements from Christine Scrimger, CAP, CABA from Scrimger and a company.
Mover and seconder, Council Novakis, Council Statham, all in favor? And is so moved.
All right. Have a great rest of the meeting. Thank you. And again, thanks to Magda and her team for getting us to this point.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, we'll go on to item number 14, closed section, recommendation, clerk.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin Council hereby proceeds into the closed session at 5:26 PM in accordance with section 239 2B, being personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees.
Mover and a seconder. Councilor Statham, Councilor Denning, all in favor? So moved. Okay, report from closed session, September 28th, 2023. Council met in a closed session, discussed two matters relating to identifiable individuals under 238 2B in order to review the applications received for the Economic Development Committee and the Old Town Hall Committee, which contain personal details and information. Council provided staff with direction. So we'll go on to our confirming bylaw.
That bylaw 2023-87 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on September 28, 2023 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover seconder. Statham and Novakis, all in favor? So moved. And adjournment.
That the Council of the Municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourn at 5:51 PM to meet again on 4 PM on Thursday, October 12th, 2023, or at the call of the chair.
Mover to seconder. Denny and Statham, all in favor? So moved. Thank you. See everybody at the October 12th meeting.
Thank you.